Halito, and welcome to Native Chalk Talk, a podcast by natives for all. Here we're keeping our Native ancestors' stories and history alive, while also sharing with you our Native culture, traditions, and more. I'm Rachel Youngman, a Choctaw originally from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me as we learn from our Native American guests. And I hope you'll do me a favor. Feel free to like and share these episodes. I so appreciate it. Yakuki. So you are Chickasaw and you're learning your language. And but just like many of our other Native American languages out there, it is also not represented enough. It's underrepresented. Are there a lot of fluent speaking elders still out there today?
So sadly, it being on the endangered list on UNESCO's endangered list, it changes, and it changes because last I knew there was 40 fluent speaking elders left, all over the age of either 50 or 60. So they're up there. And I think it's gone down even more because we've had some pass. And these are people who grew up speaking it fluently. And that's really sad. I've been working with an elder at our tribe with the language because we have a lot of the language in the show. Last I checked, we had about 65 words in the show. I'm still trying to add some more. I do it in a way that someone will know the language that's being, like, they'll kind of understand what's being said.
Yeah.
Like, like if someone says chokma and the other person says hello, okay, then they're probably saying hello.
Yeah.
If someone says Sano Honglo and the other person says you don't need to be sorry, then you kind of know that the other person said sorry. Me and my co-writer have tried to do it in a way that represents the language and gives a nod to the language in a way that people will still understand, and probably, like, in the playbill we'll probably put definitions. I know we did at our community production. So I have a song that I wrote, Unconquerable, and it has the language in it. And it's called Unconquerable because the Chickasaw Nation is called the Unconquerable Tribe.
Hmm.
So it's kind of my nod to my tribe. And then in the song Warrior, although if you listen to the single, there's no Chickasaw in it right now. There is now in the recording, there isn't, but now there is. So if we do another album, it will be in there. The tribe has done a really good job at putting out like a Rosetta Stone. They're trying to teach us. When I was in Oklahoma, I was speaking to a young guy. He was probably in his 20s and he was fluent. So I started speaking. It's so funny. So I'm like trying to speak to him and I go, oh, Chukma, so Nicolette Blount, and then I go, Chickasaw. It's like, oh, and then he starts going off and I'm like,
Oh no.
oh, I go, I'm just still learning. Oh, okay. So then he like slowed down and he like would help me a little bit. That was really funny. But I
Awesome.
was thinking there's no way this 20-year-old is fluent. And sure enough, he sounded pretty good to me.
It's amazing. I love that. We're starting to see that more and more. And my sisters and I take the Choctaw language classes as well. I'm so proud to get to do that. It's like any new word I learn, I'm so excited. I feel like I'm on top of the world. But again, the minute you start talking with someone fluent, you're kind of like, I know nothing.
The Chickasaw language is very similar to Choctaw, and we actually use a lot of your words as well, like halito and yakoke, and like
Love
so
that.
when in our dictionary it says like a lot of words will have two words, and it's because one is Choctaw.
In looking at what you do in the music world, you seem to have just such a giving spirit. Tell us what you do with the streaming income from the show.
So the streaming income, so I mean, streaming doesn't make that much money for those of you who don't know. It's like
Okay, good to know.
stream, like or less. I mean, because Spotify just came out with something that they're making it even less. So, but what I do is I wanted to find a nonprofit that worked with helping people with MMIW and things like that. So I did some research and I found Oklahoma Native Alliance Against Violence, OCNAV, I believe is the shortened term. And they work with about 25 plus tribes in Oklahoma, which I thought that was great because my tribe being in Oklahoma, and they work with Chickasaws as well. And they work with, you know, promoting no violence in the home and helping people who have been through violent situations and helping spread the word about MMIW and helping victims and their families and all of those things. So I give 100% of the streaming, which isn't much. So then I usually like times it by 3 or something.
Okay.
And sometimes I times it by 4. And then I send it to Oklahoma Native Alliance Against Violence because I think that's something important and I want to always support um other people in our community and the things that they're doing. And so I have made no money on any of the music that is streaming. Like I
Wow.
said, it's not much to begin with. So, but and that's why I quadruple it or whatever to make it a substantial amount that I'm giving to them.
I mean, we do what we can, right? A portion
Right.
of my proceeds goes to Native causes as well. And I'm sometimes doing, I'm like, maybe I should round that off to a full 100. You know, it's like,
Right.
it's hard because we're having to put money into our own businesses. Mine's definitely in the red at all times. So I get it, but we do what we can. So now you're also an investor in the arts as well, correct?
Let's see, I've invested in some off-Broadway shows. My LLC, Take My Shot Productions. I want to support unrepresented voices in off-Broadway and on Broadway. And I want to support these stories that may not otherwise be heard. So I co-produced and invested in a commercial jingle for Regina Comet, which starred a Black actress, and it was about her story. And also these two writers. It was a funny comedy, but it was the first show to open off Broadway after COVID. So I thought that was really important to get the arts moving. Um, we invested in the Museum of Broadway, which I don't know if you can see that, but this is something they sent me. So if you go to the Museum of Broadway, this is what you see on here is a much bigger thing on the wall in the room that they have the movie. And my husband and my name is on there. To my knowledge, I think I'm the only Native investor on that wall, to my knowledge. You know,
Cool.
I don't know of any other Native producers. I'm sure they're out there, but in Broadway, I don't know them yet. Um, and then I've invested in a show called In Pieces, which is a really great show by Joey Contreras, and he is Hispanic. Joey Contreras' show In Pieces, which is you can stream his music. His music has been streamed millions of times. I am so surprised that his shows haven't been on Broadway yet because he's so talented. He has songs that can easily, like you could hear his songs and think it's from the radio. Like he has songs that easily cross over. It's pop music. And his story In Pieces is about love, love lost, love found, all different kinds of relationships. And then I've also invested in another show called Millennials Are Killing Musicals, which is a story about moms. And a friend of mine, Nico Juber, wrote that. Being that females are underrepresented in Broadway and off Broadway, that was something I really wanted to support. I try and do what I can where I can. You know, now we have 2 in college, so it's probably going to be a little less than I did in the past. But
Tell us about the fellowship that you're a part of.
okay, so this year I was chosen to be one of the first National Dramatists Guild Foundation Musical Theater fellows. Before it went national, it was just New York and surrounding areas. And
Mhm.
this year they made it national. I'm one of the first National Dramatists Guild Foundation Musical Theater Fellows. That's a lot.
That's a lot of words, but
But,
that's a prestigious situation, right?
yeah, I've been told it is. I mean, I'm super honored and beyond blessed to be a part of it. I'm working with, there's about 10 of us fellows, I believe. I believe 5 of us are
Oh,
playwrights and 5 of us are musical theater writers. Meaning musical theater writers could either just write the book, or they could write the music and lyrics, or they could do all three, which in my situation, I do all three. Um, so yeah, it's really great. We have a gala in October in New York City, and they do a lot to support us as artists, which is amazing. And getting us opportunities, helping us get opportunities. They have rooms in New York that you can go and sign up for and not have to pay. Like, I don't know if many people know this, but in New York, like, your rehearsal spaces, usually you have to rent them, but there are like 4 or 5 in the Dramatists Guild Foundation that you can just sign up for and go in there and use them without having to pay. And they're beautiful spaces. So, but they also do a lot for us, like around the gala time, they're gonna get us all professional headshots. They do a lot to support us, and helping us work with mentors for our art. And I've learned a lot because being a stay-at-home mom, I chose to put everyone first in my life. And so I started my
Yeah.
career so much later. So moms out there, your life is not over after you're a mom, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom. Do what you love and go for it.
And I approve this message. You have done so much out there, and I know listeners were focused on Savage the musical today, but as mentioned earlier, Nicolette has also recorded and produced many pieces over the years. Reading from a portion of your bio, Nicolette, Nicolette had the honor of singing at Carnegie Hall and performing in 2 operas, Tosca and Turandot, with the Palm Springs and Riverside Civic Operas. She has also been on numerous TV and radio programs in California and Hawaii. While living in Hawaii, Nicolette toured the Hawaiian Islands with the Kanakapila singers, dancing hula and singing, as well as performing as a solo artist. She continues to perform in musical theater, and some of her favorite roles being in Annie as Miss Hannigan and Mary Poppins as Miss Andrews. And Nicolette also performs in local theater, jazz, and rock bands. Other than Savage, what are your, let's say, 2 favorite works you've created? Just take a moment to brag.
So there's 2 other works that I'm really excited about that I'm writing. One is about, I love Alice in Wonderland. I grew
Ah,
up with that story. My mom
yep.
used to dress me up like Alice. I love Alice in Wonderland. So I am co-writing a show called Red, and it's the story of the Queen of Hearts. And there's a big twist at the end. And it's also like, how did she become the Queen of Hearts? How did she become so evil? Like, and it's
Right.
to do with another story about it's a story about a mother and about loss and about redemption. I guess I like those themes. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. And I think that it will be also something that people can relate to, knowing that they have that, the Alice story. And this story, the Mad Hatter, is a little bit conniving and evil.
Ooh,
So that should be fun. And if you're thinking about like the hero's journey, if you know about that as a writer, then the White Rabbit is kind of like the sage who helps the Queen of Hearts throughout the show, which makes sense if you know about Alice in Wonderland, right?
right.
Um, and then the other musical I'm working on is called Riot Girl, and it's about for any of you Gen Xers, in the 90s, there was a whole movement called Riot Girl. I used to be a punk rocker back in the day. I still have my Doc Martens. I have about 3 of them. And 3 pairs. So the Riot Girls was a movement in the West Coast, and then it spread throughout everywhere. And that's when, like, I don't know if you Gen Xers remember, but we had zines, and they were like homemade magazines that people would put in bathrooms. And, we would, a friend of mine who is actually co-writing show with me, she and I kind of grew up as punks, and she and I made these zines, these newsletter zines, whatever you want to call them. And you would basically like take pictures and photocopy them on paper and bend the paper in half to make a book. And you would type things and you would handwrite things, and you would talk about feminist things and things about, women's issues and all of these things. And
Love it.
the Riot Girl came out of that. And it was basically, what happened was, girls were basically getting sick of holding their boyfriend's jackets while they mosh pitted. So they're like, well, why can't we be the ones who are up there on stage singing? And, and there's a lot of bands that came out of that. Slater Kinney, Bratmobile, a whole bunch of female punk bands came out of that. So we're in the process of constructing a story for that right now. And I think we're using a lot of our own personal experiences growing up back then. And so it's going to be about like two teen girls basically and how they navigate all that.
So fun. You're talented and multifaceted, which is, I feel like there's just so much coming out of you. All the creative juices are just all over the place, and I'm excited to see where you're going with it all.
Thanks. It's fun. I don't sleep much.
I bet you don't, because I'm wondering how you do it all. My God.
I know.
Well, my number one goal with Native Chalk Talk is to help preserve the stories of our Native ancestors while simultaneously hoping to promote the good work of our Native communities and the individuals and what we're all doing. But being that music has always been a passion of mine, with my background being in opera, even though it was a long time ago, I really enjoy highlighting American Indians out there in the music world. So this conversation, it literally hits all my goals. So thank you very much for taking time to share. Remind our listeners how they can keep up with you and what you're doing out in the music world.
Well, they can check out savagemusical.com. They can follow us on, let's see, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook, Savage the Musical, at Savage Musical. You can stream us on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Pandora. Like if you search, I think you may have to search Savage the Musical original cast, or you can also go to my website and it will direct you from there. And then in terms of music, I'm continuing to write new songs for the show, and we're thinking about putting out a Broadway concept album sometime soon here. So we're in the running for Creative Nations grant. So if we get that, that's something we would like to do with that.
Fantastic. So go check it out, y'all. And don't forget also nativetheaterartist.com. If you are someone who has talents and are Native American and want to share those with the world, it's a great place to start. Before we go, Nicolette, are there any words of wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners today?
I guess there's a few things I would say. I would say never give up. One of my favorite sayings is where there is fear, there is no creativity. So don't have fear. Everything I've done has been basically like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing it. Recently I had a literary agent reach out to me, who works with Nicholas Sparks. They want me to write a book about my great grandmother, a narrative nonfiction, and I'm going for it. Like,
Oh,
just
so
have fear. You
exciting.
just have to do it, right?
Yes.
Um, and I also would say don't let your upbringing define what what your purpose in life is. Like,
Mm,
I say that being that, like, especially artists, and this may be true for other people as well, but I've known many artists who grow up in a certain upbringing, even a certain culture where it's looked down upon if you're an artist. So, you need to be a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever, teacher, whatever. Um, but you will always come back to it because that's what I did. Like, I came back to it. So here I am much older, starting my career. Um, so do go with your gut, go with what you love, because at the end of the day, it's not about how much money you make. It's about if you're happy. And when you're happy, you're going to be doing something that is helping to give back to others and fill others up. And you have to be your authentic self.
truly well spoken. And you would know, like you said, you came back to it.
Yep.
So, your great grandmother, Wanda Savage, embodied more than just the spirit of the American woman. She symbolized an era many prefer to forget. It was a time when women, especially Native American women, struggled to carve out their existence amidst a world in turmoil between old traditions and new ways, just grappling with integration into a society that resisted their presence. And despite these challenges, she not only survived, but thrived. Her life was far from easy, yet she inspires us to transcend mere survival, urging us to harness our talents and to have resilience to achieve greatness. And that's exactly what I believe Nicolette is doing today, listeners, taking her ancestors' strengths and talents and presenting it to the world while also preserving Wanda's story. Don't forget that part, so that we may never forget those who came before us. Yakoki, Nicolette, for sharing about Wanda and Savage the musical.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks for listening to Native Chalk Talk. Be sure to join our community on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check us out at nativechalktalk.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're going to love it. Yakoki. Thank you, my friends.